so much for being here today. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with Shigeru, who honestly is one of my heroes. It has been an incredible honor and privilege to know him for such a long time and to be able to bring to the world a project that has really changed a community. I learned so many things from working with Shigeru, and they're things that I continue to utilize in my daily life and my daily practice. And we'll talk about specific buildings, but I really want to give you a chance to get to know Shigeru a little bit as a person, because he's incredibly inspirational, as you can tell from the different things that he's done. I truly believe that the highest order is to be of service, and Shigeru embodies that in a way that I think very few people do in the world today. So, Shigeru,
Yes. Yes.
great to see you.
I'll see you again.
And I wanted to start off by asking you a little bit about this idea of hope. We're living at a time, and we've discussed this before, it seems like every day something more horrible happens than the day before. And that just seems to be kind of the pattern of time. And often people want to know what they can do, how they can help. And you've come up with a very quick way of being of service really anywhere around the world. And I just want to start off by asking you to talk about that.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Heidi, we met 20 years ago. I was interviewed by her to design the Aspen Art Museum, and this became my first art museum. If you have not been to the Aspen Art Museum, I really recommend you. This is one of my most important project. Also, when she opened the museum, she published my book about all humanitarian project. This first book to put together my project in disaster. Actually, I graduated from Cooper Union, New York. Before I spent 3 years at SCIAC, Southern California Institute of Architecture, in Los Angeles. Then I went back to Japan to start practice. After I spent 10 years, I recognized that we are mainly working for privileged people who has power and money. Because power and money is invisible, they hire us to make a monument to show their power to the public. I'm also making monument, but I wanted to use my knowledge and experience not only for privileged, but also general public, also people who lost their houses by disasters. Especially, I recognize that after big earthquake, I recognize people are not injured, people are not killed by earthquake itself. People are killed by architecture, collapse of the architecture. And also, when city has to be rebuilt after the big disaster, we get more projects to rebuild the city. But before city are rebuilt, I recognize that there are so many people suffering with very poor living condition in evacuation facilities and the temporary housing. I thought that is our responsibility as architect to improve this kind of living condition before city are rebuilt. That is why I start working in disaster areas. But also I am sometimes interviewed, why architect doing this? But always I think there's nothing special because you know that the medical doctor always they take care of the people after disaster, even after the war, even for the enemies, doesn't matter. So as architect, there's nothing special just to take care of the people who have the poor living condition as architects. It's nothing special. So that is why I can continue working in disaster area. But also I have the same passion to design temporary house as well as designing a museum. So that's I have been doing. And Heidi was very kind to put together all my disaster relief project as one big book. So that was first time. Thank you, Heidi.
So you can already hear the humbleness, right? Like, it's not a big deal, right? Like, doctors help people in disaster areas. Of course, architects should help people too. And yes, there are lots of things that people should do, but it doesn't mean that they do them. And you do them. You don't have to respond to that. Just saying that for a minute. So Shigeru's referencing when we opened the Aspen Art Museum, I was able to curate an exhibition of all of his not all of them, but yeah, most of them, the humanitarian work. And so we actually we rebuilt the structures and we did a book. And so people were able to understand, what would it be like to live in a space of that size? What are the materials that we used, and be able to tell some stories around that. So I'd love to not make assumptions that people know anything about the practice, and I'd love to ask you about the paper tubes and how you were first attracted to that material, and it's a great indicator of how you think.
When I was studying architecture history in the school, I recognized that always great architects are influenced by fashionable style of the time, even Baroque, even recent time, postmodern. But there are few architects, they are not influenced by fashionable style, like Buckminster Fuller, Frei Otto from Germany, because they invented their own structural system and materials without being influenced by the fashionable style. So that's why they created their own style of architecture. That is why, from beginning of my career, I want to develop my own structural system and materials. That's so 1985 when I started my practice. I started designing exhibition because when I designed the exhibition, I couldn't afford using wood. So also I didn't want to waste such a precious material like wood for temporary use. I found the recycled paper tube, which was my all over my studio. When we finish fax paper roll, it used to be roll of paper and tracing paper for sketching. I hate to throw things away, so I kept them. So when I was looking for the material to replace wood like this, I found this recycled paper tube. It's very inexpensive, and we can have any size, any length. So I started using this for exhibition. Then I found out this is such a strong material. So I start testing to make this as a structural system of the building before big movement of ecology sustainability came in the middle of the 80s. And then little by little, the people start talking about the recycling, ecological thing. So this made me easier to convince people to use such a unconventional material for building. As I said, I started working in disaster area 1994. After the Rwanda crisis, there were two tribes, Hutu and Tutsi, kill each others, and there are the big camps, refugee camp. Over 2 million people became refugees. They are living with very poor shelter made by United Nations. But they had a problem because that shelter was not good enough to keep them warm because during the rainy season it's get very cold. So I sent a letter to improve the shelter, but I got no reply. So I had to go to Geneva, headquarters of the United Nations, to propose my idea without appointment. But I was very lucky to meet the architect who was responsible for shelter construction. That time they are having environmental problem, because refugees have the trees by themselves to make a frame to put the plastic sheet given by United Nations. But this became deforestation because over 2 million people cut the trees, deforested the forest. So this became the environmental problem, and the United Nations started providing aluminum pipes. But aluminum was very expensive material locally, so that's why refugees sell them out for money and cut trees again. So that was the timing I proposed my idea to use a recycled paper tube to make the frame for the shelter. Even the capital of the Rwanda, Kigali, I found the paper tube manufacturer. It's a very inexpensive, lightweight, so that they accepted my idea to make a shelter out of paper tube. That's at the beginning of the using recycled paper tube for the structure and shelter. And the advantage is very inexpensive, cheap, but the factory is all over the world, so that I can use the paper tube locally produced anywhere. So, but also it's strong enough because it's industrial material. We can waterproof or fire protected easily. So that's the advantage of using recycled paper for the structure.
So one of the things that characterizes Shigeru's work is this idea of taking things that already exist in the world and repurposing them and using them in a different way. And so Dean referenced that in terms of the shipping containers and the nomadic museum that was made, and then saving them and using them for Altadena. And so a key part of your work is this idea of the looking at engineering kind of differently. And so, for example, the Aspen Art Museum, we used a material which was a resin impregnated paper, and it was woven in a way that it had never been used before. And you also have a really interesting relationship to timber. So, can you talk about what draws you to these materials, and how you're interested in pushing them beyond how they're traditionally or previously used?
Uh, Regarding the timber, also timber is such a wonderful material. It's a structural system, and also that we don't have to finish, and it's insulated, and we can be make it fire protected by oversizing. If we have extra thickness for the timber itself became the fire protection for timber itself. So that it's such a good material and also available almost anywhere. It's also very warm. Can you show us Aspen Art Museum or any other timber structure? The roof structure called space frame. It's a three-dimensional truss system. Normally, we need steel connections to connect the timbers or even steel pipes. But I want to take advantage of the characteristic of timber itself without using steel connections, so that I made the diagonal pieces curved, so that we need just one bolt to connect all pieces together to make a very strong three-dimensional truss. So this is some also the characteristic of the timber. We can bend easily, and also this is fire protected. So there are so many new way of using the timber for building. Also, it's very warm feeling. This is what Heidi explained. This is the paper with the resin, and the skin is the skin of wood. And it's fire protected. It's durable for exterior, and it's woven. Depending on what is behind, we change the density of the woven screen, and this becomes translucent building. Also, when you go to Aspen downtown, there is all the cubic uh, uh, brown brick building, so that this also extension of the brown brick building as a context of the downtown Aspen. So this has many meaning. So this was the first time to use this material for this way.
So I'm going to point out a couple of things about the building. As we're looking at this, I'll just point out. So as Shigeru is saying, the woven screen is the tightest weave on the lower right here, and then when it wraps around the other block on the lower left, and then it opens up as it comes to the apex of the building. So we talked about it at each opening was like a snowflake. Like you think they all look the same, but then when you look at them up close, each one is different. So each aperture was actually different. So there are these things that you think you know, and then the longer you look, the more you see. So the whole frame and the whole wooden truss, they were all assembled on site by hand. So the building has this warmth and tactility to it because the craftsmen who put it together, their fingerprints were literally on the material. So you can feel that while you're in the building. And I asked Shigeru, I said, you can't do your first museum in America and not give us paper tubes. So he gave me some paper tubes, which are the benches here, you see, and this undulating paper tube ceiling that goes to the lower level. And then there, the paper tubes are turned. So you see them as like a honeycomb pattern on the side there.
But also, let me tell you that the biggest challenge for this museum, that I was given such a small site for the big program.
True.
There is no space for the foyer lobby. Normally, you go into the big foyer lobby on the ground floor, then you go to the gallery, but there are no space. So what I did is making the transparent elevator in the corner, and also the big stair between screen and the inside, so that you have to go up to the rooftop first before you visiting the gallery. You go to the first, the top of yeah, here. They enjoy mountain view. As you see, there is a ski gerende. The Aspen is most famous for ski. So when you ski, you take a lift or you climb up to the top of the mountain, enjoying a beautiful view of the mountain. Then you come down. So the way you enjoy the art here, you have to take a lift or stair to go up to the top of the mountain, enjoy the mountain view, and come down to enjoy the art. So just like when you ski. So because of the lack of the space and also the context as a ski resort Aspen, I got this idea of how to approach the art like a skiing.
I'll tell you another genius thing. Aspen has a maximum building height, and no one had ever figured out how to get beyond it. It was like 40 feet and then 8 feet for mechanical. And Shigeru realized that he could put the mechanical vertically. They didn't have to be horizontal. So that's what you see over here in the white. And so the building is 47 feet tall. And that made people in Aspen so mad at me. But it made the museum perfect and beautiful because the galleries have 14 feet ceilings and then this, beautiful open exterior, interior, bringing the outside in. Again, something that Shigeru is so well known for. So I want to ask you about this idea of private space and public space and how you navigate. And the first project of yours that I ever saw was the curtain house, curtain wall house, thank you, that was included in an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York called the Unprivate House. And it just blew my mind when I saw that project. And that idea of navigating intimate private space and accessible public space is something that characterizes your work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, regardless to the culture, I believe the in between space between public and public or between inside outside is most comfortable space like this space. Even if you go to Europe like Paris, even though it's cold winter, people love to sit outside under the canopy or to enjoy the coffee. So, regardless to the culture, I think that the in-between space is most comfortable space for people. I always try to create a space like this in between. That's the most comfortable space. So that always I make sliding doors, big glass shutter, different devices to connect inside outside easily. This is another museum project in France. It's a center, a Pompidou Center in Metz. It's a satellite museum center in Paris. The roof is totally made by timber. Idea came from traditional woven Asian bamboo hut, laminated timber for the roof, and there is so-called gallery tubes. Long tube gallery is stacking on top of each other and framing beautiful view of the symbol of the city, and the ground floor is a glass shutter, which is totally open to connect inside outside. So here is also another example connecting between inside outside, creating the public space. So it's always I try to make this kind of in between space.
So we're in Los Angeles and you're working on a project here. You've worked here in the past. What do you think are some of the challenges and opportunities of working in Los Angeles? And how can you help?
I don't have opportunity yet. I'm looking for one. I'm not sure that I'm answering your question, but I was very lucky to spend 3 years in Southern California. Actually, I came to United States to go to Cooperstown in New York. I found out after I came, they don't accept foreign students unless I'm transfer student. So I spent 3 years at SIAC, and I was very lucky to visit many so-called case study houses done by Neutra, Schindler, Charles Eames, and so on. So they are really the people who create a lot of construction system, lightweight structure, in between spaces. So that's how I was totally influenced in Los Angeles. So Los Angeles is such a wonderful location to try to do many experimental things. Doing the architecture in east side, it's more difficult, but the California has a lot of opportunity to do some environmental, innovative architecture. So even actually Heidi was the director of Orange County Museum. I was one of the competitor for this competition. I lost, but that I really regret because the museum wanted to make the condominium in order to do to raise the money for the museum. So my idea was very genius, I must say. I made because the museum itself was hidden by high-rise building next door, so it's totally dark. But the high-rise building, the condominium can be very high, so I made all the south facade reflected to reflect the natural light into the rooftop of the museum to get the natural light, the skylight. Although there normally dark behind the high-rise building, but the high-rise condominium helped to give the natural light into the museum. That was very innovative idea. I'm so regret that this was not realized.
So interesting. I don't know if anyone knows this, but in 2008, both the Aspen Art Museum and the Orange County Museum of Art were looking for architects. And in Aspen, our three finalists were Gigon and Geyer, a Swiss firm, Tom Main and Morphosis, and Shigeru, and we picked Shigeru. And in 2008, the three finalists for the Orange County Museum of Art were a Central American firm, I think, or South American. I never heard the name, Shigeru and Tom Main. And so the Orange County Museum of Art picked Tom Main. So they were always sort of sister projects in a way for me.
But I'm really hoping to do again with you something.
Yes, me too. Me too. Okay. So when we were doing the Aspen Art Museum, my board asked for 3 designs, and they wanted 3 designs from Shigeru to pick one. And when I told Shigeru that's what the board wanted, Shigeru said, well, if I make 3 designs, isn't one of them going to be the best? And I said, yes, of course. And he said, well, then don't you just want 1 design? I'm only giving you 1 design. And I thought that was amazing. And of course, and that has become sort of like a guiding principle for me. And I went back and said to the board, we're only having 1 design. So will you talk a little bit about your creative process? How do you come up with ideas? What is it like?
The most important idea comes from the context, the site conditions. Either good characteristic or bad. The one I realized is the second site. The first site was more hilly site, for Aspen. And I took advantage of this hilly site to design the museum so that the condition of the site itself became most important influence and idea for design. I'm not interested in making just the unusual shape. I'm interested in to interpreting the site condition, good condition, bad condition into design. So that's my approach for design.
And do you work by hand? Do you work on a computer?
Yeah. I make still the all hand drawing sketches. I believe that of course my staff make a computer drawing, but by making drawing by computer, this is directly connected to your brain. But making hand drawing is connected to the heart. So that's why I still prefer to drawing everything by hand. So which cannot be replaced by AI, I believe.
It's such an important thing to have part of the conversation because there are certain things that are unique about everyone. And we're living at a time where creativity is, I think, extra important, and being able to have access to where ideas come from and how they come. So you travel almost continuously. What do you do to ground yourself in places when you land? Are there things that you do as part of a practice or that you can't live without? A little insight into you.
Traveling is the most important for my practice. Tomorrow I go to Mexico. It's a small town. What's the name of the town? Yeah. This is a really incredible project. Before I came to Los Angeles, I spent 3 months in Oakland, California, in a dormitory of English school, and I had a Mexican roommate when I was 18, and now he's a very successful businessman. So after 50 years, he hired me to make a city. The first project is designing a church. So that's really exciting project we are going visiting tomorrow. So I'm very excited to really see what the context of that.
That's what I was going to ask. So, in addition to the project that you're working on in Mexico, what else are you working on that you want to share or that you're able to share?
There is many projects. Even I'm now working in the Middle East. One of the interesting projects is in Oman. I'm designing the new extension of the Oman Historical Museum using local sound, local context. Oman is a very interesting country. It's very different from other Middle East countries. They are very quiet. There are no high-rise building, and people are so kind and so peaceful. So this is one of the most interesting projects I'm working on. But otherwise, I'm also working in Pakistan. They had a big flooding, so I'm working with local NGO designing low-cost house for the victim of the flooding. And as you saw in the one in Ukraine, so that the public project and the disaster project is moving simultaneously.
Great. Okay, we're going to take just a couple of questions and then we'll sum it up. I'm going to just repeat your question too so everyone can hear. So it's a comment and a question about these partition systems, which are used in all sorts of disaster areas. And one of the things that happens with them is, and it's key to Shigeru's work, is that it creates a space of dignity for people. And it rehumanizes people by giving them privacy and an opportunity to have intimacy amongst a lot of other people. And so the question is, how has the use of these systems evolved over time, and has the work that you've done helped other humanitarian circumstances do better?
After the disaster, there is different phases. This is what am doing immediately after the disaster, because people has to be evacuated in a big space like a gymnasium, and the local government prepared some folding bed, but there's no privacy. But I believe the privacy is most basic human right. Especially we need privacy between families, so that this is a system. It's just the two diameter of the paper tube, smaller one just inserted and hanging the curtain, and we can connect easily to give a different size of the spaces depending on type of families. So that also this has to be very flexible to open close, because during the daytime we have to check people whether they're okay or not. So that this has to be easily installed, easily dismantled, easily to open close, and also this has to be strong enough for the earthquake and so on. But this is only three. But normally I totally occupy whole space of the gymnasium with this system with the street in between. So that's the first phase. Then while people are here, I prepare the temporary housing. So there is a different phasing. But in the beginning, it's very important to give the privacy to each victims, each families. So this is one in the Lahaina, Hawaii, Maui, after the big fire. This is the paper log house built with my student from Japan and Hawaii University student. So that this is the next phase after the staying in evacuation facility. People need a more private house. So this is the second stage. Then we make a more permanent houses.
Thank you. Last question. So there was a comment about your interest in and study of case study homes and how a lot of your work is like a case study. And so with an opportunity, future opportunity to work in California, how would you respond or add to that practice?
I'm interested in designing the houses, which can be, it's like a human body. Now we make a very heavy insulated wall and heavy windows, but I think that the house can be very flexible depending on the climate, depending on the weather. For example, if we design the house behind big trees, it's very good to shade for the summer, but maybe we can just move a little bit behind of the trees in the winter. We get more sun, so that the house has to be more flexible, not just making the very insulated, but like we go to the cool area in the summer, and so that we move depending on the climate. Even instead of making a very heavy insulation, we take off the clothes and wear more. So that I designed the one prototype that we can change the facade like a clothes. When you get bored with your clothes, you can take off because I designed the facade wall and the roof together with the membrane with a zipper like a clothes. So very easy to install, easy to change, easy to make it more warm, more cool. So that I think that I like to do something case study house in California, something very flexible like a human body.
I mean, right? Am I right? Genius. So even to think about a zipper, like most people here probably have a zipper on, but to think about using that as a way of like changing the facade of the home that you're living in. So Shigeru, thanks for being in conversation today. Thanks for the work that you do. And I just want to also acknowledge what Anne said about the efforts that are being made today. And, you know, I thought about being here, and I think that we're contributing to making things better. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Anne, and your team for this opportunity. Thank you, Heidi.